So, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to our lecture series on microprocessors and microcontrollers. This is lecture 11, and we were talking about the signal description of 8086 microprocessor in our latest class. Today, just we will have a recap of what we have done in our previous class, that is the common mode signals of 8086, and then let us continue into the minimum mode signals of 8086 and shall discuss the minimum mode read-write operations, how they can be handled by the 8086 processor through its minimum mode signals. We have this address and data lines, AD lines, AD0 to AD15. Then we have address 16, 17, 18, 19 lines. Okay, these are the pin numbers 2 to 16, then pin number 39. These are the AD 0 to 15 lines. Okay, 16 bit of data bus and lower 16 bits of address bus. The upper 4 bits of the address bus are A16, 17, 18, 19. Now, AD lines, they are bidirectional lines and they are time multiplexed between the address bus and data bus operations. Whereas the upper 4 bits of address lines, that is A16, 17, 18 and 19, they are also time multiplexed, but this time they are time multiplexed with the status lines S3, 4, 5 and 6. After this, we have, obviously we have discussed about the status lines 16 to 19 and they are time multiplexed with status lines 3 to 6. Status line 7 is time multiplexed with this particular signal, pin number 34, BHE bar. About the use of this BHE bar, very clearly we have seen in our previous class, that is the physical memory organization of 8086. So there we have checked it out that how this BHE bar along with the A0 are used for chip select of the even bank and odd bank memories. BHE bar for the odd bank chip select and A0 for the even bank chip select. Next, this pin is very important pin, and this pin takes a control of changing the mode of operation of 8086. Here, using this pin, we can switch between the modes of 8086. As we know that 8086 can work in two different modes, that is minimum mode and maximum mode. So whenever this pin is high, the processor is working in minimum mode, that is single processor system, and when this pin is low or made low, that time we are configuring the 8086 to work in co-processor, multi-processor mode. Okay, then anyhow, this is a minimum mode thing. You can understand that here minimum mode signals, these 8 signals dedicated to the minimum mode, that is hold acknowledgement, write, memory or IO, okay, data transmit or receive, data enable, ALE, address latch enable, and INTA bar, that is interrupt acknowledgement. We will be discussing all these 8 signals in detail for today's class. These are the minimum mode signals, and maximum mode signals are here, which would be will be talking into our next class. So obviously this pin, when it is made low, okay, that time it will work in a maximum mode. When it is high, it works in a minimum mode, the 8086 operations. Okay, what is minimum mode, what is maximum mode? We have understood that in minimum mode it's a single processor system. In maximum mode it is a multi-processor system. Okay. Now, next we have discussed this particular pin, that is read indicator. So as this pin is out, this shows that whether the processor is reading or not. So this pin goes low or made low by the processor itself to make the other peripherals that the processor is currently reading the data from the memory or the input devices. After this, we have that 24 to pin number 31, which are mode specific pins, about which we will be talking today. But let us complete the other common mode signals which we have seen earlier. Test signal. This signal is an input trigger to the processor, and whenever the processor goes into the waiting state, that is idle state, and when it will go into idle state, when the execution is done on the wait instruction. There is one instruction named WAIT. In the whenever that processor executes this instruction, it goes into the idle state of operation, and to revoke it from the idle state, to bring it back to the normal state, we have to give this trigger on this pin number 23 here, this test signal. A low signal on this line will make the processor come back to the normal state of working. Okay, that is test. Next is ready. As I've earlier told you that there are some peripherals, or most of the peripherals of 8086 system are generally slower when compared to the speed of operation of 8086 itself. So for all the synchronization purpose, that whenever the processor has done with certain task, it has to wait for the processors also to complete that task, and this input pin to the processor is triggered by the slow devices in the system sometimes, and that is mostly the memory for all the data read-write operations, specifically data writing operation by the processor when it is there. So the memory will indicate to the processor that it has done the data writing operation, and it is ready for accepting the next set of data. So it's basically for synchronizing the whole system with the 8086, especially for the slower devices to come with the space of 8086, so that they are not losing upon any data in the exchange of data because of their different speeds. Yeah, the reset signal is an input signal here. When we want the whole 8086 to be reset, when I say reset means we are just making everything to 0. All its internal registers except CS, all its flags, Q, and everything will be made 0 except CS register. CS is code segment register. So code segment registers becomes FFFF, about which we will talk about why this happens, why the code segment registers will be FFFF and remaining all why it will be 0. We shall talk about this one while discussing the interrupts of 8086. Specifically, when we talk interrupts, we will check that on reset what happens and why that CS becomes FFFF. Okay, so obviously I did not touch the pin number 40, pin number 1 and pin number 20, as they are very obvious that pin number 40 is VCC. Here you have to give 5 volts supply. Pin number 1 and 20 are the ground. Okay, so your general power supply will be between your pin number 40 and 1, and automatically the 20 will be another ground provision available. Now pin number 19 is clock. So 8086 does not have any internal clock on itself. We have to give the clock from external source. Okay, and that clock requirement is that it has to be having a 33% of duty cycle. And in a 8086 system, in a 8086 computer, we'll be using a particular clock generator named as 8284. It's a clock generator used in 8086 system. Again, that IC is of 18-pin DIP structure, manufactured by Intel, about which we will not be going into much detail, but I have shared you one particular link. If you want to study about that particular IC more, you can check it out. Next two pins are pin number 18 and then 17. These are the external interrupts inputs for the processor, external interrupt inputs. So here we can trigger the processor creating an interrupt. Suppose the processor is performing a certain task. At that particular moment, if you are having some another task which of more priority of a more higher requirement to be performed, executed first, then we trigger the processor for giving an interrupt to the main task and asks the processor to give the service to this current given interrupt. But again, the interrupts of two types, maskables and non-maskables. Non-maskable interrupts, definitely they have to be serviced by the processor irrespective of anything. But the maskable interrupts can be ignored in some cases by the 8086 processor. The request can be ignored actually, depending upon what is the status of IF flag. So if you reset the IF flag, all the external interrupts on pin number 18, interrupt request will be ignored, otherwise they will be serviced. Okay, about this one analogy in the previous class I have given about the maskables and non-maskables. And obviously interrupt, we know that the disturbance in the current work or current task. So 17 is a non-maskable interrupt. Okay, here it is showing that causes the type 2 type of interrupt. Okay, what exactly the type 2 interrupt is there and how many different types of interrupts are there in 8086 system. We'll all this together we'll discuss in the topic interrupt of 8086, interrupts of 8086. Okay, so here we are so far done with the 8086 common mode signals. Now as I said, in the today's session we will be talking about mode specific signals, that is pin number 24 to pin number 31, and we'll be talking about this common mode signals today. Pin number 24 to 31, you can read out there: INTA bar, ALE, DEN bar, DT slash R bar, M slash IO bar, WR bar, hold and hold acknowledgement. One by one we'll be checking out. We'll be starting with pin number 29. Hold and hold acknowledgement we'll be discussing at the last. So we'll be starting with 29 pin number, then 28, 27, 26, 24, 25, 24, then coming back to the hold and hold acknowledgement. Okay, let us start that. So before we start discussing about this minimum mode signals, one should always understand that how we are switching the processor into a minimum mode of operation. So for that one, this pin number 33, MN/MX bar is responsible. If you give a logic 1 on this particular input signal of 8086, the processor will become into a minimum mode of operation. And in minimum modes, this pin number 24 to 31 will be assigned with these functions. Okay, hold acknowledgement, write, memory slash IO bar, data transmit slash receive, data enable, header / enable, and interrupt acknowledgement. So we'll start talking about the pin number 29, that is write. So if you understood the pin number earlier, we have discussed about the pin number 32 in common mode signals, that is read. Okay, write is also an active low signal to indicates the processor's status of writing the data. So whenever the processor is writing the data to the memory, or it is writing the data to the output devices, for that all situations, 8086 will make this particular pin number 29 low. It's an indicator to the other modules available on the system to understand that the 8086 is currently writing the data. So there is a data write operation is going on into the processor system whenever this pin number 29 is low. So it's a type of an indicator given to the other peripherals of the system that processor is currently writing the data. It is giving the data out onto the memory or onto the output devices. Okay. The next signal in this one is pin number 28. It is M/IO bar. Now in earlier, before this, we have talked about write, and before class we have talked about read. Now, whether the read or write of data is happening between the processor and memory or between the processor and IO devices. For getting that understanding, this pin number 28 is available. So it indicates in the processor system that whether the processor is having the data communication, read or write operation between the processor and memory or between the processor and IO devices. So whenever the processor is having the data communication with the memory, that means either reading the data from the memory or writing the data to the memory, this particular pin will be made high by the processor. So this is an output signal made high by the processor, indicating that the data operations of the processor read write are going upon processor and memory. Okay, and whenever the data operations are between the processor and IO devices, whether the processor is reading the data from the input device or writing the data to the output device, in that cases this signal is made low. So that bar indicates that when this signal is low, it is a IO data operations what the processor is conducting. When this signal is high, that M indicates without bar that the data operations are there for the processor for memory data operations, memory read and memory write. Okay, when high, memory read or memory write. When low, IO read or IO write. That is pin number 28 here. The next signal is pin number 27, that is data transmit or receive. So this signal you can understand it is similar to the read write operation indicator. So whether the data is been transmitted by the processor or the data is been received by the processor. So this signal is for indication of that purpose. So it's an output signal when you check it out. It's an output given into the system for all the peripherals that to make them understand that processor is currently transmitting the data or it is receiving the data. Obviously, there is a data communication on the data bus. So to indicate the flow of data, the direction where the data is going, this signal is used by the processor. So the processor will make this signal high to indicate that the processor itself is transmitting the data, giving the data. Okay, whether that data is given to the memory or IO, that is handled by the pin number 28. Earlier we have seen it. Okay, now whenever the processor is receiving the data, it is getting the data from either memory or the input devices. That time this signal will be made low. So these are the processor control signals. All the pin number 32 earlier what we have seen, then pin number 29, pin number 28, pin number 27. These all shows an control signals given to the other peripherals and also an indication to them that currently what is going on with the processor. So processor is reading or writing. Processor is reading from memory or writing to the memory, or processor is reading from the input devices or processor is writing to the output devices. Or here in this pin number 27 that data operation is going on into the processor, but that data operation is that is a processor transmitting the data or is a processor reading the data. There is not much difference between this pin and the read write. It is shows the same indication what the read and write is having. Okay. Basically read and write are directly given to that IO devices and the input devices. Whereas this DT/R bar, this signal is a general indicator for all the other peripherals. One may ask the question that when we are having dedicated read and write to show whether the processor is reading or writing, then what's the need of another signal that DT/R bar? See that whenever the processor is reading, that read trigger is directly given to that input device or the memory from where it is reading. Signal is directly giving a trigger to that particular device from where the processor wants to read. Okay. Similar way, even the write signal is also again given directly trigger to the device, either memory or the IO device, whether from where or to where the processor is writing, to which device the processor is writing, direct trigger. Whereas this DT/R bar is a general indicator that data bus is engaged by the processor for data communication. Okay, there are many things I have earlier told you that on a computer, the processor will be there, the memory will be there, IO devices interfaces will be there, and sometimes some more additional devices will be there for completing all the computing actions of the processor. And this signal 27, data transmit or receive, this signal is an indicator for all the other peripherals to make understand them that whether the data operation carried out by the processor, is it reading the data or it is just giving the data out, okay, transmitting the data or receiving the data. So that indicator is this one. For transmit, this signal will be high. For receive of data, this signal will be low. Next is DEN bar, data enable. Now, earlier we have talked about this AD lines. AD lines are bidirectional and they are also the time multiplex. Time multiplex between two actions. Either they become the address bus, okay, A0 to A15, and otherwise they become the data bus, D0 to D15. Now, when this duality is there, two functions are assigned. So when the data is accessible on that lines and when the address are accessible on that lines, to trigger that one according to and temporarily stored the available data and available address onto appropriate latches and buffers. These two signals, pin number 26 and 25, are used. The pin number 26 is used for enabling the buffers available inside the processor system. Processor system, when I say, it's a computer where the processor is there, memory is there, IO devices are there, and there are some latches, buffers available for having the temporary storage of the data and addresses. So here, this pin number 26 and trigger given to the buffers, that data is now available on the data lines, AD lines, AD0 to 15, and it triggers that buffers, it makes that buffers on such that that buffer can take a copy of the data available on the data lines. Because as that AD lines are very dynamic in the sense that for every proper intervals of time, it changes its behavior. For certain time, it will be an address on it, and for other certain time, it will be a data on it. So there shouldn't be a loss of a thing available on that lines. The thing available on that line can be a data or it can be an address. So whenever that particular instance of time when the lines contains the data, automatically this pin number 26, what it will do is it will trigger the buffers available such that a copy of that data available on that instance of time on the data bus will be saved onto the buffers. Such that next cycle of address when it starts, the lines will completely erase the data and take address on it. So data is erased. Suppose that moment of time, memory has not completed the reading of the data. Reading, memory reading means processor writing. When the processor is sending data onto it, memory will read that data and save into it. That time, as the transition on the AD lines is happening, certain time address, certain time data. As soon as the time available for that data to be there on that line completes, it will erase the data on the lines and give the address on the lines. But memory are the slow devices. Earlier we have seen this. When the memory are slow devices, if they have not completed taking the data completely before the time completes there, for safety purpose, to make sure that data is not missing or data is not available for the memory to be accepted, we are saving a copy of a data onto the buffers, such that even though the memory is little bit slow, that buffers will be available for the memory to get the access of data what was sent by the processor in earlier cycle. Every cycle, for half of the cycle, address will be there. For half of the cycle, data will be there. So first cycle, suppose the address is first sent to the memory, even addresses will be stored in the latches. What is that one? Complete system configuration we will see. And obviously we're coming to the pin number 25 next. So before that conclusion, or before going to that one, let us conclude this 26. It is a data enable. This pin is given out by the processor and taken in by the data buffers available in the 8086 system, such that the copy of the data is maintained in the buffers till the complete data read or write operations are done. Okay, specifically data write operations by the processor, because the processor speed is enough such that it sends the data and it can be ready for doing next task. But the memories are a little bit slower. They want some time for the data to be taken in, which is sent by the processor. So buffers will be there for holding the data for a small amount of time. So this DEN bar will make enabling of that buffer. Buffers will have an enable pin. So enabling of that buffers, this pin is used. Pin number 25, ALE, address latch enable. It works exactly in similar manner how the previous pin, data enable, was working. Data enable was working for temporarily storing the data onto the buffers. This ALE line is used for temporary triggering the latches to store the address on the AD lines before the transition of address data. See, AD lines will continuously go in this fashion. Half of the cycle address will be there, half of the machine cycle. What is machine cycle? You will come to know slowly. So understand that half of the machine cycle, that address will be there on that lines. Another half of the machine cycle, the data will be there. So one cycle completes, next cycle starts. Again, this same thing will start. Address data, address data, address data. And it is fixed. For a fixed amount of time, it will be there and will be go on continuously. So when this transition from address to data and data to address is happening, what is earlier available on that lines should not be gone, erased completely and lost. So for that purpose, data whenever is there on that AD lines, this DEN bar will make sure that it is saved a copy of data onto the buffer, and ALE bar will make sure that a copy of address is also saved onto the latches. Okay, because one read or one write operation, when the complete operation is going on, it has to make sure that till the whole operation of read or write completes, both the address of that data and the data itself are available in the system. Okay, before the next cycle starts, these operations sometimes may not complete. Operations may start at the processor for the next cycle, but the memory devices and IO devices, which are generally slow when compared to the processor, may not be completed that action of data read and write. So this DEN bar and ALE signals will help trigger the latches and buffers to store the address and data respectively. Latches will store the address and the buffers will store the data temporarily. For every one cycle they will store it. So every one cycle, previous cycle what address and data was there, it will be stored. For second cycle it will store first cycles, first processor third cycle it will store the second cycle's data and address. So likewise, every previous cycle's data and address will be stored onto the latches, address will be stored onto the latches, data will be stored onto the buffers, and these two pins will be acting as an enable to this latches and buffers. Okay, we will see this one with the whole system configuration, how these lines are connected, where they are connected, how they are useful. We will also see the timing diagram today, read and write operation, to make our understanding clear. And lastly, INTA. 24 pin number. Okay. Before this one, let me conclude this data enable we have done. Address latch enable is there. Address latch enable, as you can read there, it is used for latching up the address before the transition of that AD lines from address lines to data lines happens. It will store the address onto the external latches connected in the system such that the address stays for the complete memory read and write operation by the processor. Okay, as the content of that AD line will change after a certain time. Initially it stores the address, and after a certain time it will store the data such that that address is not lost. It will be temporarily stored in the latches, and this ALE will be using for enabling those latches. Okay. Lastly, the INTA bar, let us see. INTA bar is an interrupt acknowledgement. Now earlier pin number 18 we have discussed. Pin number 18 is interrupt request. Other devices, external devices, request the processor for the interrupt. Okay, and we know that INTR pin number 18 is a maskable interrupt. Maskable in the sense that if the processor wants, it can ignore that. It is not mandatory by the processor to service the maskable interrupts. Now, the case when the processor accepts the interrupt and gives the service to the maskable interrupt, it will send one acknowledgement to that requesting device that I have accepted your interrupt request and I will be servicing you now. Okay, if somebody interrupts, then it has to be made clear to that device that whether you will be serviced or not. So processor will give a low signal on this line. INTA bar means it is a low signal on this line. When it is active, it has to be low. So processor sends a low signal, and this will be seen by the requesting device and understood by the requesting device that the processor has accepted its request of interrupt. Okay. So you can read it there when the interrupt is requested, and if it is accepted by the processor will send this interrupt acknowledgement onto this line such that the other device, requesting device, can understand whether it's a request for interrupt was accepted or not. Okay. Now the next two pins is hold and hold acknowledgement. Now we know that every time the input device and a memory and our output device is connected to the system, sometimes some operations between the input device and a memory are not required to be involvement of the processor there. Suppose you type something on the keyboard and you need not to do any processing to the data what you're typing in. You just want that typed data to be stored on memory. But every processor operations will go through processor. That means whatever you type, it will first take that data into the processor, hold it into the registers of the processor, then accordingly as requested it will go and store that data onto the memory. But this is a waste of a processor's efficiency and time, where the processor is just acting as a mediator between the input devices, memory, output devices and memory. That time the processor is just wasting its efficiency and time. Okay, to understand this one you have to simple understand that whenever the case is there when your input data need not to be processed, just it has to be sent to the output device or to the memory device for storage. That time processor's requirement is not there. You can understand the use of these two lines clearly, that how they are used for efficiently using the processor's efficiency. Okay. So we have discussed about all the signals in minimum mode. Let me show you the timing diagram and system configuration. I'll show the system configuration first to you, then come back to this timing diagram. Okay, the system configuration, now we can check it out here. 8086 minimum mode system configuration is this. So in between there is a 8086 CPU here. On this left side of your screen right now, you can check it out. That is the clock generator circuit. This is the IC particularly which I have named earlier, that is 8284, IC 8284 clock generator. So why we are using this one and not general another timers available in the market, that here there are certain limitations of that timers, such that first of all, a very common known timer is that 555. I've even got one question earlier that can we use a 555 for giving the clock input to the 8086? We would have able to use it, but the 555 is not that much efficient enough to provide the timing required by the 8086 system, because 8086 system requires a 5 megahertz to 10 megahertz frequency of working clock, and maximum 555 can give up to 2 megahertz of clock only. So obviously that is one reason. And 8284, as I said, handles all sort of clock requirements of the whole system. That is why we use it. It gives a provision of resetting. It provides the ready signals. Okay, so for all the requirements of the clocking requirements of the system can be handled by this IC. That is why this clock generator 8284 is used instead of normal any other timer which is known to the you people so far. Anyhow, that is on this left side, this circuitry available. Coming to this 8086 here now, you can see clock, ready and reset. These three pins we are getting directly input from the clock generator. So clock generator is giving clock input to it, ready input to it, and reset input to it. Ready input has to come from the slower devices, right? We have discussed earlier that the ready input is meant for providing a synchronization into the 8086 system, and here the slower devices into the system uses this particular pin to make the processor wait for a certain time and synchronize with them. So ready here, it is driven by the clock generator, but in turn it will get some acknowledgement from the slower devices. It will accept those things, and accordingly it will generate the ready signal and trigger the 8086 operations further. Apart from this, you can see that AD0 to AD15 lines are available here at the middle. Continued with that one, A16, 17, 18, 19 also available. These are the bidirectional lines, the AD lines obviously, because address can be unidirectional. Address bus is a unidirectional because the address will go from the processor to the output of the outside devices, but data communication is bidirectional, both sides it will travel. Okay, this is the bus high enable given. Okay, it will go and will acting as a chip select for the odd bank of memory. Okay, these are the latches. Here you can see this IC number 8282 is a latch actually. It's a 8-bit latch. So 3 of them here available here. 888. It's 24 latches are there, 24-bit latches, but we require 20 latches only because our address size is 20 bits. Anyhow, they are available in 888 configuration, so 3 are required, 2 are not sufficient. So 3 latches are there to store the 20-bit address. Okay, these latches will be temporarily holding the address through the one cycle of the processor, one machine cycle of processor, one machine read or write cycle of the processor. Okay, and here you can see ALE bar. ALE bar is given as an input to the strobe pin of the latch. Strobe pin of the latch is latch enabling of that latch. So ALE will indicate when to enable the latch such that the address can come into the latch and stay there for a certain amount of time. Latches are the temporary memory storage devices. You know already that one. Okay, flip-flops, latches, everything. Now, here downwards, under the latch, you can find 2 buffers are there. Okay, IC numbers 8286. 2 buffers, each one is of 8-bit buffer. Buffer register it is. A simple buffer register, and there are 2 available here, and these 2 will store 8 and 8 16 bits data. So you can see that AD lines, one line is going into the latches, one bus it is coming out and given into the 8286. So that one is the data lines here. So data and data enabling is again given as output enable of this particular buffer. So DEN bar is triggering that output enable of this buffer such that the data is stored and given out when required. So you can see here. So the time multiplexing of AD lines, address and data together, is demultiplexed by these 2 setup here, that is latches and buffers. You can see AD lines were given input to the latches and the same AD lines were given input to the buffer. Now here output of the latches is the pure address A0 to A19 and output of this buffer is the pure data D0 to D15. And also observe that the address lines are unidirectional, one way. Data lines are bidirectional because data can travel both ways and address will travel only one way from the processor to the outer devices. So this is the minimum mode 8086 configuration system. And here are some control signals, control buses there, memory or IO devices it is, interrupt acknowledgement, read, write, these all signals you can understand by yourself. Self-explanatory they are. Okay. Clocking signals are available on the left side, in between 8086 is there, and the setup of ALE address latch enable how it is going into the latches for temporarily holding the address. It is demultiplexing with the basically the address and data lines, which are time multiplexed. These latches and buffers are demultiplexing them, separating them. Okay, address lines are coming out of the latches, data lines are coming out of the buffer, coming out or getting in, because they are bidirectional. Okay, and here DT/R bar, you can check it out. It is giving a given as in one of the input to the buffers, because buffers can take the data from both sides. Okay, they can take the data from left to right or right to left. Basically there will be a shift registers only. So left to right shift register, right to left shift register, both it will accept. So depending upon whether the data is transmitted by the processor or received by the processor, this particular pin will make this buffer understand that. So if it is data sent by the processor, it will make the direction from the processor to the other devices, left to right. If the processor is reading the data, receiving the data, so again this pin will become low. So these buffers can understand that the data will be coming from outer devices to the processor, right to left. Okay, so these buffer registers will understand the data flow, whether it is receiving or transmitting by the processor. Now let us go and check it out, the read and write cycles of 8086 minimum mode. Read and write cycles. We'll first see the read cycle. Here many signals are there. Now first of all, first thing first, there is a clock available there. You can check it out, clock. So this is a clock on which 8086 runs. Okay, one on and one off cycle will give you one clock cycle T1 written there. Okay, another clock on and off time is T2, another T3, next is TW, next is T4. The TW is introduced here intentionally as for synchronization purpose. Earlier also we have talked about that. Processor speed is good compared to the other peripherals. Now TW is not one cycle, instead it becomes multiple cycles depending upon what the synchronization is required. Suppose the connected memory device is very slow, this TW will become 2 cycles, 3 cycles, 4 cycles and so on accordingly. So the TW is not only one cycle, this is basically wait cycle, TW, W stands for wait. Time cycle for wait, it can be 1 time cycle for wait or 2 time cycle for wait for 3 or 4 depending upon the speed of the peripherals, that is memory and IO devices. So basic configuration is T1, T2, T3, TW and T4. So for whole of this particular whole thing, T1, T2, T3, TW and T4, these 5 clock cycles will make one machine cycle. One machine cycle means the time taken by the processor for completing one read operation or one write operation. One read operation or one write operation, time taken by the processor is called one machine cycle, and one machine cycle will be generally T1, T2, T3, TW, T4. That much time it will be there. Now here you have to concentrate upon this AD lines, AD0 to AD15. Now these are bus. Thus in this all signals, the ones which are available in this format like this, the purple color here, this one are the bus, this one also bus. Others are signals, single signals. Okay, so here at this moment of time, you can check it out for a small moment of time. It is address on it, A0 to A15. Okay, there is a small transition gap. After that, it is reserved for the data, and after that, a valid data is there on these lines. So in one cycle, you can check it for T1 till T2, almost T2 ending. It contains address only. Okay. For T3, it will just be not having the address, not having data on it. After that, it will reserve this bus for the data purpose only. Towards the T wait cycle, it will have the valid data on it. And once the T4 completes there, again the next T1 will start, next machine cycle. So it's T1, T2, T3, TW, T4, again T1, T2, T3, T4, TW. Okay, T4, TW actually. TW first and T4 next. This cycle continues. So in one cycle, what is happening? You check it. Address is there initially, then small transition, when no address, no data is there, then data is there on it. Then again, once the T4 completes and next T1 starts, there will be again address on it. And this cycle goes on. For every cycle, it will be like this only. So there will be only for a small amount of time when there is a address on these lines. And again, there is a only small amount of time when there is a data on it. So as these lines are dynamically changing between containing address and containing data, they have to be stored somewhere. So that is what our ALE and data enable pins are doing. You can check it out. ALE is high for a certain amount of time here. So when it is high, it will trigger that latches. It will enable that latches. So once the latches are enabled, the address on this address lines will get into the latch. Okay. And once they are available into the latch, and even from here when they are erased, there is no problem. The address will be erased on these lines, then it will have a data on it. So address is lost onto these lines, but it is not lost by the system. In system, they are preserved in the latches. Okay, preserved in the latches. Same thing happens towards the end of T4. After T4, at the time TW and T4, it contains the data on it. These lines. Okay. Once T4 ends, whenever the T4 is ending, that time we'll be having a transition again on these lines. So these lines will be having a address back on it again. So that time what the data is there on these lines will be lost. So before the loss of data, you can check the last signal here in the yellow color, DEN bar. DEN bar is active low. So it goes low, the signal is going low at this point when this bus is starting reserved for data. Exactly the synchronization of these lines, you can check it. When the bus is reserved for data, that time data enable is going down. So going down is becoming active. When it is becoming active, it will activate the data buffers. When it is activating data buffers, this data will be stored into that buffers. Okay, the data buffers will take that data in. Now again this data DEN, data enable, is becoming high because it is relaxed. Now there is no valid data on it. Once after T4 completes, T1 starts of the next cycle. Next T1 cycle start means it will contain address on it. That is why data enable is now becoming high, that there is no data on it now. There will be address. So as a T1 of next cycle starts, you can see ALE is again high. So valid address, it will store onto the latch. So demultiplexing of this AD lines will happen. As we talked about AD lines, same is in the case of AS lines. AS lines are address and status lines. We have seen that A16, 17, 18 and 19 either contains the upper 4 bits of address or it contains the S3, S4, S4, 5 and S6 status bus. So same demultiplexing of address and status will happen as it happened in the AD lines. For the starting cycle, when AD lines are having A0 to A15, these address status lines also will have address A16, 17, 18, 19 on them. Okay, after a certain time they will contain status. So later half part of the machine cycle where the AD lines will contain data, this AS lines will contain the status, and this cycle will be remaining till next T1 starts. When the next T1 starts, again it will start like this. There will be an address on A0 to AD0 to AD15 and also address on A16, 17, 18, 19, these 4 lines. Okay, remaining other all signals also you can check it out, and specifically this ready signal you can check it out. This multiple transitions from high to low are here available. That is because of the synchronization of that slower device with the memory. We can't say that how much slow that device will be. There is no specific standard of speed what it is there. Some devices will be slow, some devices will not that much slow. So TW will be continuously increasing according to that one, and this wait cycle is not fixed. That means it is not starting here and ending here actually. Okay, it is low for here and it will be low till that TW half cycle will be there. Last TW cycle, multiple TWs can be there. So ready is here available. Read signal you can check it out. It is, as this one is read cycle, memory read is active. Active means it is low. Okay, and it will be low only when there is a data on the AD lines, because processor is reading data. Like this it is. DT/R bar, this signal is given to the buffers. We have seen in earlier system configuration diagram. To the buffers it is given that whether the data will be coming from processor side into the buffer or from the other devices side into the buffer. So this signal will indicate that thing to that buffers. So it is reading operation, so it will indicate the buffer that the data will be coming from the other side, other peripherals into the buffers first, then from buffer the processor will take. So this is maintained low throughout because it is DT/R, data transmit/receive bar. So when it is low, it is receiving. When it is high, it is transmitting. That indicator is there here. So this is the 8086 minimum mode read cycle. So thank you. That is all for today's session. We have discussed the minimum mode signals of 8086, and we have checked the minimum mode system of 8086 with all the different latches and buffers available inside it. And we have checked out the read cycle of the minimum mode 8086. In our next class, we will see the write cycle and then discuss about the maximum mode signals. Thank you. See you in the next session.